What's up guys, welcome back to another Master Duel video. It is your boy Vox, and today we're gonna be discussing with you guys about Handtraps. Handtraps are key cards that if you know when to use them, you can completely disrupt your opponent, especially if you have a combination of Handtraps. Then most of the times you will basically stop them dead at their tracks if they don't have a response. If you are new to Yu-Gi-Oh! Or you haven't played for years and you came back at Master Duel, hopefully this video will open your eyes and show you how many more options for Handtraps there are out there that you could use, maybe helping you face some decks that you have trouble against in the meta. But yeah, as always, for your convenience, timestamps will be down in the description below. For our first Handtrap, and the first choice that I decided to show you guys, is D.D Crow. What it does is quick effect: you can discard this card to the graveyard, then target one card in your opponent's graveyard, punish that target. Basically, it is not the best Handtrap specifically right now at Master Duel, but it has some uses. It is a winged beast. You could run this, and you will probably see some people choose to run this maybe once or twice for their Flanderis deck when it finally arrives in Master Duel in a month from now. But basically, it is a Handtrap choice for you to just target one monster in your opponent's graveyard and just banish it. Cards like maybe Phoenix Enforcer, but even then it's not really the best. But I decided to show you this in case you have trouble against specific decks that keep reoccurring from the graveyard. And let's be real, most of the decks, if not every deck, in Master Duel right now, their graveyard is basically their second deck. So D.D Crow is not the best choice, but it's also not the worst. Effect Veiler, what it does, it is during your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one effect monster your opponent controls, then negate the effect of that face-up monster your opponent controls to the end of this turn. This card is pretty good. It's like infinite impermanence. The thing with this is that you can basically play around it by having your toggle on instead of auto, and you would use your monster effects on your either standby or draw phase, because Effect Veiler, his only drawback is that you can only activate him during the main phase, so, and only your opponent's main phase. So for example, if you had infinite impermanence or whatever that could target and negate, you could basically use it on your turn as well. But for Effect Veiler, it's only for disruption for your opponent on his turn. It is a good choice. A lot of people choose to run this because they also run Selene into their deck, so they add one or two Effect Veilers into the deck. If you saw my Relinquish deck, you know what I'm talking about with Selene and the Tuner Spellcaster that you special summon basically. Effect Veiler is a good choice, obviously for decks like Adamantipator, Sword Soul, for decks that need to activate their effects obviously in order to get into their plays. Effect Veiler will disrupt these decks, and if you have a combination of Handtraps like Effect Veiler or Infinite Impermanence or whatever, most of the decks will not be able to play around these Handtraps, so it is a safe choice for you to add to your deck. Not the best, again, because of the main phase thing that it has, but apart from that, still a good Handtrap choice. For the third Handtrap, and I believe that this Handtrap is insane, and that is Droll and Lockbird. What it does is, if a card is added from the main deck to your opponent's hand, except during the draw phase, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. For the rest of this turn, cards cannot be added from either player's main deck to the hand. This Handtrap basically stops every single deck in Master Duel at the moment. Every single deck that is meta, every single deck that is non-meta but is fun, you get the gist. This Handtrap can basically stop every single deck that searches from main deck to hand. That means that every single card that will search, the moment that they do, you chain Droll and Lockbird and then they are locked. They cannot search more cards from their deck, you basically stop them. This Handtrap is absolutely insane, incredibly powerful. If you have free space into your deck, you have like 1, 2, 3 free options that you could add to your deck and you play around with the cards. Droll and Lockbird is an incredible Handtrap that you could potentially add. Maybe try it and see, obviously depending on what you face on the ladder, depending on the rank that you play. But if you play like Plat 1, Diamond 1 higher, or Diamond 5 sorry, higher, Droll and Lockbird will basically stop more than half the decks that you will face, probably every single one of them, right? Let's be real. An incredibly powerful card. Maxx everybody know what it does, but in case you do not know what it does, during either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. This turn, each time your opponent special summons a monsters, so that means every single time, you immediately draw one card. You can only use one Maxx per turn. Maxx is basically a card that controls the meta. What I mean controls is basically combo decks will not be able to completely destroy you every single time, because if you Maxx them, they will have the choice that obviously if they do not have a response to stop the Maxx and Maxx gets resolved, then they have the option to either completely stop dead of their tracks in order for them to not give you more cards, or they will play the Maxx challenge, which a lot of people Master Duel that play obviously refer to that meme, which is basically you continue playing and basically you keep giving your opponent cards for them to draw, but then what you do is you risk obviously them drawing outs for your board, which is like outs like Nibiru or even Impermanence for more negates, etc. You get the idea. Maxx is an incredible card. Most of the decks will just run three out of this straight up because it's incredible, but obviously because every single deck right now in Master Duel special summons, Maxx is incredible. In 1 month from now, when Flanderies will hit the meta, this might change. There could be situations where you will see decks adjust to that, because if you see a lot of players playing Flanderies, then Maxx is basically a dead draw. It won't do anything because Flanderies rarely, if ever, special summons. So keep this in mind. For our fifth Handtrap is PSY-Framegear Gamma. PSY-Framegear Gamma is an incredible choice for decks that play synchros into their deck. What it does is cannot be normal summon to set, must be special summoned by a card effect when your opponent activates a monster effect while you control no monsters, so that means your monster board needs to be empty. Quick effect, you can special summon both these cards from your hand and one PSY-Frame driver from your hand, deck or graveyard. If you do, negate that activation, and if you do that, destroy that monster. During the end phase, banish that face-up monster special summoned by this effect. An incredible card, an incredible disruption. If you play first and you manage to resolve this into your turn, you basically win. Most of the times, if you resolve PSY-Framegear Gamma into your turn, you most of the times will win. One tip, if you play the Gamma package, is if you decide to discard your PSY-Frame driver for whatever reason, because you think that it's a brick, but for whatever reason you choose to discard PSY-Frame driver, and then you activate a card or whatever, your opponent chains a response, doesn't matter what it is. You chain Gamma. If you have driver in the graveyard, they can chain Cold by the Grave, and if they do that, your driver, and obviously they will target your driver, and if they do Cold by the Grave targeting your driver will get banished, and because it is banished, Gamma will not be able to resolve, because in order for Gamma to resolve, it needs to special summon the driver from deck, hand or graveyard. So keep this in mind. If you have driver into your hand, if you want to resolve Gamma, it is the better idea to keep him into the hand. But if you don't have a choice, you can discard driver, but that's also the risk that you're taking. If your opponent knows what they're doing, and if they have Cold by the Grave, then that is the risk that you're basically taking. Then we have PSY-Framegear Delta. I only choose to share this in case you face a lot of Sky Strike into the meta. Obviously, this is a far-fetched idea, but I still want to show this. It is basically the same effect with Gamma, but instead of monster effects, it's for spell cards. But I just wanted to showcase and basically show you guys that this is still an option if you play Psychics into your deck for whatever reason. Then we have Ally of Justice Cycle Reader. If you played in the TCG in the last year, you know that card. You know actually how strong this card is, because last year we had Drytrons. They were incredibly powerful. What it does is quick effect, you can discard this card to the graveyard and target up to 2 light monsters from your opponent's graveyard, banish those targets. Obviously, this card hates Drytron, right? Let's be real. Drytron is not prevalent anymore due to the nerfs that they received in the recent Master Duel ban list, but I still want to show you this as an option in case you face it every single time into your ladder, into your games, for whatever reason. Because what I've noticed is every single time that I will be talking with my friends that play Master Duel, I will be saying that I have never faced this deck, for example, like Drytron, as I said, right? I have never faced Drytron for like weeks. And then they would answer me and say, oh, what the fuck are you talking about? I have been playing Drytron for like 5 games out of 10 every single day. So Alive Justice Activator is a good option for you to counter Drytrons. Then we have Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. What it does is, when a monster in the field activates effect, or when a spell trap that is already face up on the field activates effect, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, destroy that card on the field. You can only use this effect once per turn. The thing with Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, it is a psychic, meaning that you could basically summon this with Emergency Teleport and then have an extra disruption into your board. That is one thing that you could basically play around with this, but with Emergency Teleport you can have some plays, some extra disruptions, basically setting your Emergency Teleport and then using it in your opponent's turn to special summon Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit to basically destroy a card off of your opponent. Then we have Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. Before you laugh, I only wanted to show this because everybody's playing DPE, and this is one of the options that you can completely remove DPE out of the game. What it does is, if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, quick effect, you can discard this card, reveal one card in your extra deck, then look at your opponent's extra deck. Also banish all cards in their extra deck with the same name as the revealed card, and you can only use that effect once per turn. This is one of the options that you can basically use and remove DP off of your opponent's extra deck if you play DP as well. So this is the only reason I wanted to show you this. Or maybe there's different options you could remove with this as well, like access code for whatever reason. But obviously most of the people will not play this card, but I just wanted to show you this in case you're only losing to DP again and again and again. This is one of the outs. I wouldn't run this at 3, but I wanted to show you this again so you can keep this in mind that this exists, basically. Then we have Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, the Handtrap for Master Duel. This and Maxx are completely prevalent and they are dominating the Handtrap game for Master Duel. An incredible Handtrap, basically acts and can disrupt everything. Let's read what it does in case you do not know for whatever reason. When a card or effect is activated that includes any of these effects, quick effect, discard this card, you negate that effect. If your opponent adds a card from the deck to the hand, special summons from the deck, or they send a card from their deck to the graveyard, you can chain Ash to negate it. An incredibly powerful Handtrap. Most of the decks will run this. If you notice, something that can be useful with these Handtraps is that they're also tuners. So at worst, you could normal summon them and use them to go into your Crystal Haki Fibrax or Synchro monsters that you may have into your extra deck. Obviously one of the best Handtraps in Master Duel currently. Then we have Ghost Belle and Haunted Mansion. What it does, when a card on effect is activated that included any of these effects, again the same with Ash Blossom, quick effect, discard this card, negate that activation. So if your opponent adds a card from their graveyard to the hand, deck or extra deck, special summons a monster from their graveyard, or banish a card from the graveyard, you can chain Ghost Belle, discard it to negate that effect. Ghost Belle is an incredible Handtrap for Master Duel. Currently, a lot of people do not play her enough. I feel like Ghost Belle and Droll and Lockbird are not played enough, and they should. Incredibly powerful Handtraps. Again, depending on what you face on the meta. This is important, you need to remember this. Do not play Handtraps that are not relevant into the decks that you are playing specifically in Master Duel. Let's say you're bronze, silver, gold. Maybe these Handtraps are incredibly potential, they have incredible potential and they are powerful for like platinum or higher, diamond, but maybe at the rank that you're playing, they are dog shit. So keep that in mind. You do not want to riddle your deck with useless cards and for effects that you might never resolve, right? Keep this in mind always. I like to remind people for this because I have seen a lot of people in Master Duel meta specifically that run useless cards into their decks that almost never resolve. So I want to save you from that fate. I really want to save you guys from that fate. There's no point running useless cards into your deck as much as you can, obviously. Then we have Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill. What it does is your opponent special summons a monster face up except during the damage step. You can discard this card, then target one of those face up monsters, negate its effect until the end of this turn. Also, if that monster leaves the field this turn, its controller takes damage equal to the original attack. Basically, you discard this, and then if your opponent special summons a monster, you can basically discard this card, you target that monster, and you negate its effect. It's a weird option. You will rarely see this card played, if ever. TCG even, but it is one of the options that you could potentially add. Maybe you got this off of a master pack or whatever the fuck. It is still an option because almost every deck special summons, so it basically is a targeted negate. So it's not the best, it's not the worst, it is middle tier, but still it fails at that even. Now, Meister. Meister, I love this card, it's an incredibly powerful. What it does: when a card effect activates your opponent's graveyard, quick effect, send this card from your hand to the graveyard, you negate that effect. Straight at that. It's a fiend also, so there could be applications where you could search this. It's a 4 level. It is an incredible card. It's almost never a break because at worst you can just normal summon it and go into your Xyz line if you play an Xyz for force, for your like Baguska or whatever the fuck. Incredibly powerful card. Basically you negate a card that activates on the graveyard, basically meaning most of the decks will activate effects into the graveyard. At worst TPE, Meister negates TPE. Incredibly powerful card. Then we have Token Collector. Token Collector has become prevalent in Master Duel since obviously Sword Soul released, and because Sword Soul has the tokens in order for them to go into their synchros. Token Collector is one of the counters for Sword Soul specifically. What it does is, if a token is special summoned except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from the graveyard if it was there when the token was special summoned, or hand even if not. You can only use this effect once per turn. If this card is special summoned, destroy as many tokens on the field as possible, and if you do, this card gets 400 attack for each token destroyed. Neither player can special summon tokens. Basically, you use this to stop your Sword Soul player to basically completely stop them dead in their tracks. Most of the times on their first normal summon for their Mourner, most of the times you use this, you stop them dead in their tracks. There are other cards, there are other decks, that also use tokens as well, like with most of the decks that run Crystal Haki Firebrax or Mecha Phantom Lion or Mecha Phantom Auroradon, So Token Collector is not the worst or not the best as well. Handtrap, it is one of the options that you could add into your deck if you're facing either Sword Soul a lot into the meta or into your ladder as well, which, let's be real, you most likely do, or if you have a lot of decks that you face against that always use their Auroradon. So it is one of the cards that you can basically stop these decks completely dead on their tracks. Then we have Artifact Lancea. One also rogue option for Master Duel. Obviously in TCG, people know what this card does, it's incredibly powerful, but for Master Duel, it's not as commonly used. What it does is, you can set this card from your hand to your spell and trap zone as a spell. During your opponent's turn, if this set card in the spell and trap zone is destroyed and sent to your graveyard, special summon it. During your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can tribute this card from your hand or face up a field. Neither player can banish cards from the rest of this turn. This card basically counters every single deck that keeps banishing. You can basically counter Emancipator with Lancea. You can counter Sword Soul's Zizhao, which basically, in order for him to negate, he needs to banish a card from the graveyard. So if they change Zizhao and you chain Lancea, he will not be able to banish a card in order for him to resolve his effect to target a negate. So it's an incredibly powerful card. I really like this card. If you have, free space into your deck, like 2 to 3 cards, these are options that you could add into your deck. Test them, integrate them, see how they work, depending on what you face on the meta. And you will see that most of these cards can actually gain you positive results. And I believe Lancea is one of them. It's an incredibly powerful card. Most of the decks at the meta banish cards from the graveyard to basically activate effects. Lancea is one of the ways that you can stop them from doing that. Then we have Contact C. What it does is, when your opponent normal special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand to the opponent's field in defense position. This card's controller cannot fusion, synchro, exceed, or link summon unless they use this card as material. This card is unique because obviously your opponent can just use this card to go into any links or any synchros depending on what they have into their field. But if you use this card to basically stop your opponent at a specific moment, like for example if you play against a deck that they know their line about basically how they use their cards to enter to their board, if you know when to use Contact C, you can basically stop them completely dead at their tracks. It's a unique card, it's a raw card, but let's be real, if you do not play an insect deck, which we do not have Beat Troopers and Master Duel, Cortex C is not really the best option, but I decided to show you this so you know it exists. Then we have Dimension Shifter. Be ready for this card, because in 1 month from now, when Flunderis releases, you will be fucking tired of seeing this card being played against you. Obviously, if you've played against Green Maju or the Luna Kaiju decks, you know what Dimension Shifter does. You have faced this into the ladder. It is incredibly annoying and incredibly powerful. What it does, if you have no cards into your graveyard, quick effect, send this card from your hand to the graveyard until the end of the next turn. Any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. Incredibly strong card. Most of the decks, if not every single deck in Master Duel, needs their graveyard, because as I said, in Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2022, your graveyard is basically your second deck. So if they cannot use their second deck, they're basically fucked. Dimension Shifter, incredible card. Be prepared for this. As I've said, when Flunderis is going to be released in Master Duel in 1 month from now, you will be tired of seeing this card, so get ready. Then we have Fantastical Droll Phantazmay. This card is such a unique option for you to add into your decks. What it does is, if your opponent special summons a linked monster except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand, draw cards equal to the number of linked monsters your opponent controls +1, then shuffle cards from your hand into the deck equal to the number of linked monsters they control. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets monsters you control, quick effect, you can discard one card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it, and you can only use each effect once per turn. It is a dragon as well. This is a decent option. It is a saucy option, let's be real. But it is one of cards that you could add into your deck if you play Dragon Link, for example, or play any dragons, that you could maybe search dragons as well. This is one of the options for Handtraps that you could use if you're playing against decks that use link monsters often. Obviously, Sword Soul does not, so it's like purely synchro based. But if you play against the decks that use a lot of link monsters all the time, let's say you have days that you play but you do not face Sword Soul often, and again you're playing a dragon based deck, this is one of the options that you could basically add and integrate into your deck that could potentially help you win games. Then we have Heavenly Zephyr Miradora. This is a weird card and honestly not the best, but let's read what it does first. The activation of the effect of this card cannot be negated. If your opponent special summons a monster with 2000 or more attack from the extra deck, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned from the hand, you can target one face-up opponent's monster that was special summoned from the extra deck. Neither player can activate that monster's effect while this monster is face-up on the field. Basically, this is again one of the cards that you could use to stop a TPE or whatever else. It's a free special summon, it's a 7. Maybe you could use this to integrate it as a free special summon for your deck in order for you to go into more synchro, to go more into your synchro climb or more into your link climb options that you could have into your extra deck. Again, it is a weird choice. A lot of people choose to not run this, and obviously for the right reasons, because you have better options for you to run. But again, I decided to show you this in order for you to know that it exists. Then we have Nibiru, the primal fucking being. You're probably tired of this card. Incredibly powerful. Everybody runs this because everybody is special summoning to hell if you cannot stop them. What it does, in case you haven't seen this yet, during the main phase, if your opponent normally special summons 5 or more monsters this turn, quick effect, you can tribute as many face-up monsters on the field as possible, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. The special summon one Primal Being token, that is a Rock Light level 11, to your opponent's field. This token attack defense becomes the combined original attack defense of the attributed monsters, and you can only use its effect once per turn. Nibiru is basically the counter for all combo decks that exist. It's basically like Maxx for Master Duel. It is basically a check for these decks. You need to be aware that your opponent could run Nibiru and completely destroy your end board if you do not run negates. If you do not run negates into your end board, if you play heroes like me, you're basically fucked. So it is one of the incredible and obviously one of the best options that you could add 1 of or 2, even 3 into your deck for Handtraps. An incredibly powerful choice. Now that we are done with the monster hand traps, let's go into the spell and traps. Triple Tactics Talent. If you're playing Master Duel, you probably don't even know what the fuck this card is. If you're playing TCG, you're more than aware what it does. Incredibly potential card, incredibly powerful. The potential for this card for Master Duel is insane. People do not play this enough, and they should. What it does, if your opponent has activated the monster effect during your main phase this turn, basically if they activated any of their monster hand traps into your turn, you can basically activate Triple Tactics Talent. What it does is, if your opponent activates a hand trap again into your turn, you can either draw 2 cards, take control of one of your opponent's monster into the end phase, and it doesn't target. And the third effect, look at your opponent's hand and choose 1 card from it to shuffle into the deck. This is incredible, one of the best spells into the game. In case you have either crafted this or you got it randomly from a master pack, do not dismantle this. Instantly add it to your deck if you have a free space. This card is incredible. The third effect specifically, you can basically use this and look at your opponent's hand, and if they have a Nibiru or a card that you know that it will disrupt you, basically shuffle it back into the deck and you're safe. At worst, you can either take control of one of their opponent's monster or draw 2 cards. Incredibly powerful card, an insane card, honestly, and people do not run this often, and I feel like they should. Then we have Forbidden Chalice, a rare card. What it does is target 1 face-up monster on the field until the end of this turn. It gains 400 attack, but its effects are negated. It's a quick play spell. Again, it is a rare, so if you do not have enough crafting materials for you to craft into the better hand traps, this is one of the options that you could potentially add. It's a target and negate, an incredible choice for you to add into your deck if you have free space for it, and honestly, one of the mid to best for rares as well. Then we have Called by the Grave. Obviously, most of the people know what it does. In case you don't, target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard, you banish it, and if you do, until the end of the next turn, its effects are negated, as well as activated effects and effects of the field of monsters with the same original name. Basically, if you're getting hand trapped with any of these hand traps that basically discard for cost, you can basically chain Called by the Grave to negate their hand trap effect. Basically, your hand trap protection, Called by the Grave, is incredibly powerful. Then we have Forbidden Droplet. What it does, send any number of other cards from your hand and or field to the graveyard, choose that many effect monsters your opponent controls, and until the end of this turn, their attacks are halved, also their effects are negated. In response to this card activation, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects of cards with the same original type, monster, spell, or trap as the cards sent to the graveyard to activate this effect. Meaning that, for example, if your opponent has a full board of monsters and you decide to negate 3 of them, and you want to protect yourself from negation, that is monsters and spell, then you have to send 1 monster, 1 spell, and 1 third card that could be whatever. So keep this in mind. If you know that your opponent has an answer that is a spell, you also need to discard a spell in order for Forbidden Droplet to not be negated, for example, because what it does, again, your opponent cannot respond to this card activation, but you need to send cards corresponding to that, meaning you know that your opponent will have monster negation, so you will easily send a monster that is basically the guarantee, but then you need to think, depending on what your opponent has, that you might want to also discard a spell, for example, or even a trap, again, depending on what you play against. Incredibly powerful card. It's a quick play as well. It is an ultra rare. It is, in case you don't have crafting points, this card hurts to craft. It's 90 crafting points, but it is a card that if you add it to your deck, you integrate it into your deck, it will definitely make your deck stronger. Then we have Evenly Matched. A lot of players play like it's Duel Links, meaning that they will actually set their cards into main phase 1, and then at the end of battle phase, their opponent will chain Evenly Matched, and then they will banish their entire field, and they will be basically instantly Alta-4ing or just surrendering, right? Evenly Matched is a card that you need to play around. What it does, at the end of the battle phase, if your opponent controls more cards than you do, you can make your opponent banish cards from the field face down, so they control the same number of cards as you do. If you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand. Incredibly powerful card. If you play a trap-based deck like Eldritch, or even if you play Altergeist, this is an incredibly powerful choice for you to add into the deck. Again, people do not play Master Duel properly still. Like, I have seen people play that it is fucking Duel Links, meaning that they will actually set their cards into main phase 1, because, in case you don't know, in Duel Links you do not have a main phase 2. So, and again, please, when you want to set your cards, set them on main phase 2, in case they play evenly matched, and if they do, and you set them on main phase 1, you're basically fucked. Then we have Infinite Permanence. Infinite Permanence is one of the best cards that you could add into your deck that targets to negate. What it does, target one face-up monster your opponent controls, negate its effect until the end of this turn, then, if this card was set before activation and it is on the field at resolution, for the rest of this turn, all other spell trap effects on this column are negated. If you control on cards, you can activate this effect from your hand. Incredibly powerful card. If your opponent does not play around Infinite Permanence, you can basically completely destroy them with it. It is one of the cards that if you do not have them at 3, you're fine. You basically got the one for free if you bought the pack or the package from the shop. But it is one of the Handtraps that, if you actually want to hear my suggestion, it is one of the best to run at 3. So keep this in mind. This Effect Veiler and Droll and Lockbird, it is one of the safest options for you to run for Handtraps. And then last but not least, we have Red Reboot. Red Reboot is limited, it is a counter trap, and what it does is when your opponent activates a trap card, negate the activation, and if you do, you set that card face down, then they can set one other trap directly from their deck. For the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, your opponent cannot activate trap cards. You can activate this card from your hand by paying half your life points. Basically, you will run Red Reboot if you're playing against Eldritch, Altergeist, Trap Tricks, or whatever deck that plays a lot of traps, or they like to play a lot of traps into their deck. It is one of the options. It's basically like Harpy's Feather Duster, meaning that if you like to run one of cards into your deck that either is a response for either back row hate, or in that case for trap cards, you can add this, you can integrate this. Again, keep this in mind that for all these hand traps, they can work depending on what you face into the ladder. Meaning, so let's make an example. If you do not face Sword Soul into the meta, for whatever reason to that day that you're playing, there's no reason for you to play Token Collector or Artifact Lancea or a Dimension Shifter, for example. So adjust your hand traps into whatever you face into the ladder that day, because we do not have a side deck, we only play best of ones, so you need to be readjusting your hand traps or your deck even, depending on what you face into the ladder. So yeah, hopefully you guys saw some things that you didn't know from this. Hopefully I opened your eyes and show you some options for you to add and integrate into your deck. But yeah, that was it for the video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and see you guys next time.